Most fat loss programs won't work for you because they're built by 25-year-old influencers who expect you to cut out the food that you love and live at the gym. So in this video, I'm going to show you the exact system I've used to help Sam, Adam, Ben, James, Matt, and countless other guys over 35 to get rid of their stubborn belly fat fast and, more importantly, for good. So full screen the video and let's lock in. Let's start with the truth. Getting lean after 35 isn't the same game it was in your 20s. Your body's changed and your life's changed. But that doesn't mean it's impossible, and my clients are proof of that. The issue is your body doesn't respond the same way it used to, and most guys don't account for that. They're still following the same playbook they used in their 20s. Cut carbs, skip breakfast, go running, hit the gym, bicep curls, sit-ups. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And don't get me wrong, for the first few days, you'll feel great. Motivation's flowing, energy's high, but then the cravings come and the crash isn't long after. Suddenly you feel exhausted, sore, and somehow fatter than you were before, even though you're eating less. Then you start wondering if something's wrong with you. And that's the dangerous part because it kills your confidence. You start thinking, maybe I'm just not built for this anymore. But here's what's actually going on. Number one, your testosterone's dropped, which affects your energy, your motivation, and your body composition. Number two, you've lost muscle mass because unless you've been lifting consistently for the last 15 years, your body's been in a slow decline. Number three, your stress levels are higher from work, from kids, from life, and that pushes your cortisol up, which tells your body to store more fat, particularly around your belly. And let's not forget the massive purple elephant in the room. Number four, your sleep's taken a huge hit, which adds fuel to the fire because poor sleep messes with the hunger hormones, recovery, and willpower. In short, you've lost your drive, you've lost your edge. Everything just feels harder. Every day is like you're running through mud. But the problem is the advice you're hearing from most guys on YouTube is the same. Just eat less, just train harder, just do more cardio. It's generic, it's lazy, and it's usually coming from a 25-year-old who's never had a 50-hour work week or a mortgage to pay. Trying to follow that advice is like trying to squeeze into a suit you wore in your 20s. It might zip up, but it's not going to work for long. What you need is an approach that respects the reality of your life right now. One that works with your body, not against it. One that fits into your routine without flipping your entire life upside down. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you next. That's all the bad news out the way. Let's get into the good stuff because there's plenty of it. Firstly, you don't need a boring diet or meal plan. You don't have to run a single mile. You don't need to spend more than 2 hours a week in the gym. And you don't have to give up the food that you love, live like a monk, or avoid your friends and family like a leper. But I say all that because one of the most common mistakes I see guys make is the all-in alpha male type approach. They go from 0 to 100 overnight. And suddenly they're eating clean, training every day, doing 2-a-days, cutting carbs, reading philosophy, waking up at 3 a.m. and shouting affirmations in the mirror every morning. But just as quickly as they go from 0 to 100, they tend to spin off the track at the first corner and crash head first into a wall. We don't want to be doing all that, lads, because even if you could push through that level of restriction, your body would fight back. Because when you drop your calories too low, your metabolism slows down. You lose energy, strength, and sleep quality as your cortisol goes up. Your body doesn't know what's going on, so it panics and starts holding on to more fat. It's like flooring the gas with the handbrake on. You're just going to spin your wheels. So what do we want to do instead? Well, the same principles apply regardless of your age. Calories in versus calories out, create a deficit, move more and eat less. But we need to tweak the strategies and the tactics because your body isn't going to work like the well-oiled machine that it was in your 20s. Not only is your metabolism slow, but you've got more responsibilities, higher priorities, and less time. But the start point is always your mindset. I'm not going to dwell on this for too long, but please pay attention to this bit because I promise you, I've worked with hundreds of guys and the ones who get the best results are the ones who start here. You have to shake off the limiting beliefs. You have to catch yourself before you make the excuses. And when we break this down, when we take the emotion out of it, there's really only 4 levels to this. What you want to do, what you tell yourself you're willing to do, what you think you can do, and what you can actually do. Now, the most extreme example I ever heard was David Goggins on Rogan talking about how he lost 106 pounds in 3 months. That's 1.2 pounds per day. Now, listen, that's not healthy. That's not what I want you to strive for. But that is what's possible. That has been done. And if you take nothing else away from this video, please take this one line. It's amazing what you can achieve if you actually try, if you actually commit. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is going to be hard. Any changes, you can't go into this setting the bar down here thinking it's going to be easy. I can make it simple for you, and I will, but simple and easy, two very different things. So the first thing you want to do is set a 12 to 16 week goal. Ask yourself right now what you think is achievable in that time frame. Make it ambitious but realistic, because what that does is create a gap between where you are right now and where you want to get to. And that's important because that gap creates discomfort. A lot of guys tell me they can't do it because they're not motivated, but the truth is you don't need motivation. In fact, motivation is complete BS because you don't think your way into positive action, you act your way into positive thought. So you don't need motivation, you just need a little discomfort in your life. And setting a goal, creating a gap between where you are right now and where you want to get to in the next 3 months is going to do that. In fact, I guarantee you, as soon as you set this goal and commit to it, you're not going to need motivation. It's going to force you to turn up differently. The way I teach my clients to do this is by adopting something called the superhero mindset. And it's very simple. You think about who your hero was growing up. It could be a fictional character like James Bond, Superman, or Batman. It could be real life like Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, or Mike Tyson. Now, as you go through your day, every time you're about to act on autopilot, just stop and ask yourself, how would my superhero deal with this right now? Would they eat that food? Would they go to the gym tonight, or would they make another excuse? Would they waste their time watching that Netflix series? Listen, Batman doesn't skip leg day, even when Gotham is falling. James Bond still makes time for the girl. Superman still puts up with Lois Lane and her whining, so you've got no excuse. And you do this for every single decision. Quite quickly, you realize that it isn't one thing that has gotten you to this point. It's the compounding effect of bad habits that you don't even notice you're doing every day. So I'd really encourage you to pause this video right now and just spend 5 minutes thinking about your goal for the next 12 weeks or so. And remember, don't set 3 goals or 5, just 1, because focus is important. Okay, hopefully you did that. To be honest, if you didn't, you might as well stop the video right now because nothing's going to change if you just keep watching videos without doing the work. Once you've got your mind right, we want to fix your nutrition. Like I said at the beginning of the video, the same principles apply to you as they would to a 25-year-old guy. So we need to start by putting you in a calorie deficit where you're burning more calories than you're eating and drinking. But what we're going to do is tweak the way that we manage that deficit. Before I get into that though, let me quickly explain what a calorie deficit is and how you calculate it in case you're new to the concept. A calorie deficit is where you're eating and drinking fewer calories than you're burning, which forces your body to use the stored fat, the stored energy as fuel. The easiest way to calculate your calorie deficit is to multiply your goal body weight by 12. So if you weigh 200 pounds right now, but you want to get to 180, just multiply 180 by 12, which works out to 2,160 calories a day. Most personal trainers and nutritionists will advise you to stick to the same calories, the same deficit every single day. But I think that approach is flawed in a couple of ways, and it isn't what I recommend my clients to do, particularly the guys over 35. Firstly, it doesn't give you any room for failure. There's no flexibility. It assumes you act and live like a robot, that every single day is going to be the same. But you and I both know that life isn't like that, particularly at our age with the busy, stressful job, the partner, the kids, and the bills piling up. And secondly, because it forces you to be pretty restrictive with your food. Eating 500 less calories every single day is like cutting out an entire meal. I don't want you to do that. I want you to be fueled. I want you to be energized, because that's how you're going to build the momentum. And it's the momentum that leads to the consistency, not by starving yourself or white knuckling it or crying yourself to sleep at night because you're so hungry, which happened to me several times, by the way. So this is what I suggest you do instead. Firstly, we're going to take your calorie deficit number. So in that example I gave you, it's 2,160 calories, and we're going to multiply that by 7 because there's 7 days in a week. Now what you've got is a weekly calorie allowance. You can now decide how and when you spend your calories on a longer, bigger time horizon, which not only gives you a lot more freedom and flexibility, but it also gives you room for error. Now you don't have to be perfect every single day. If you mess up one day, say Wednesday, for example, you're not tempted to throw in the towel and say, oh, well, diet starts again Monday. And then secondly, rather than just telling you to eat 500 less calories and effectively cut out a meal every single day, I'm going to suggest that you eat 250 calories less and move 250 calories more. Because if we move more, if we live a more active life, we increase our maintenance calorie number, which means we can attack our deficit from both sides. And if you're eating 250 calories less and moving 250 calories more, you're still creating a 500 calorie deficit, which means you'll lose a pound of fat every single week. Now, before I go on to tell you how I recommend you burn those extra 250 calories a day, let me just give you a couple of extra pointers to make sure your nutrition and diet is easier. Firstly, if you're serious about losing that belly fat, you need to know that you're eating the right amount, and that means tracking your calories. I know it's tedious and I know it's boring, but it's well worth it. And honestly, I've never met a man who regrets doing it after 8 weeks. You might think you're going to have to do it for the rest of your life, but on average, 8 weeks of consistent tracking is all it takes. And to give you some perspective, 8 weeks is 0.2% of your life. 0.2% of your life to change your relationship with food for the better permanently, so you can live a happier and healthier life. I think that's a pretty good trade. The reason calorie tracking is so powerful is because it removes the guesswork, it removes the emotion, and it gives you an added layer of ownership and accountability. The numbers don't lie. You're making decisions based on data. I'd also encourage you to prioritize PFW, protein, fiber, and water. Think of these like your nutritional non-negotiables because they do the heavy lifting for you. Protein is the most important macronutrient because as well as helping you to build muscle, it also boosts your metabolism and it keeps you full. So aim for 0.8 to 1 grams per pound of body weight. Fiber is what keeps you satisfied between meals. It helps with digestion, it stabilizes your blood sugar, and it kills cravings before they kick in. So stock up on the basics like fruit, veg, oats, legumes, basically anything that comes from the earth. And water doesn't just keep you hydrated. It helps your body metabolize fat, curbs hunger, and improves energy and mental clarity. After 6 years of coaching hundreds of men, I can say with a high degree of certainty that you're not drinking enough because most guys aren't. And even I'm guilty of this from time to time, and I'm stood here preaching it, but it's so important. So start aiming for 3 liters a day and see how you feel. Now, when it comes to your meals, keep them simple because the more complicated they are, the less likely you are to stick to them. So what I recommend you do is build a roster, a rotation of 5 to 6 go-to options for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The way I do it personally is I have the same breakfast every day, which is granola, Greek yogurt, and a little bit of honey. And then I rotate 4 or 5 meals for lunch and dinner, which always have a meat or fish with rice or potatoes and a green veg like broccoli or spinach. So I'm getting my protein, my carbs, my fat, and my fiber. None of my meals take longer than 20 minutes to make, and most importantly, I enjoy them all. Guys, you have to enjoy your food because if you don't, your diet feels like a life sentence. So the best way to approach this is using the 80-20 rule, where 80% of your food comes from whole, nutrient-dense produce, but you leave room for 20% to come from the snacks and treats that you love and look forward to, because that 20% is what's going to keep you consistent with the 80%. For me, that'll be dark chocolate, ice cream from time to time, or just a massive pizza if I've had a particularly rough week. And that's what keeps this from ever feeling like a diet. That's how you make it sustainable. And that is how you get real results every single week. Okay, so that's your nutrition. I've given you a ton to think about there and hopefully some useful stuff. Now we need to talk about burning those extra 250 calories a day. But before we get into that, I know we're covering a lot here. So if your head's spinning, don't worry, because I've just launched a completely free program called the Fat Loss Accelerator that's going to give you the step-by-step plan you need to drop 5 pounds of fat in the next 7 days. You'll get daily videos, missions and accountability, a simple recipe book filled with food that you'll actually enjoy, and access to my private workout app so you can try a couple of the workouts my clients are doing. So if you want to check that out, I'll leave the link under this video. It's completely free, there's no strings, and you can start right now. Anyway, let's get back to it. Burning an extra 250 calories a day might sound like a daunting task, but when you break it down, it's really simple, and you don't need to lace up your running shoes because you're going to do this by walking. Walking is such an underrated exercise. I mean, if you can even call it an exercise, I think of it more like a habit, and it's a habit that gives you so much leverage because when you do one thing, walk, you get a ton of benefits. You burn calories, it's low effort, you're not going to get injured, it activates your PNS, your parasympathetic nervous system, which reduces your stress levels, helps you relax, and helps with your digestion, and you can multitask while you're doing it. A lot of my clients have swapped Zoom meetings for walking meetings, or you can listen to a podcast, phone a friend, walk the dog, or just take the kids out. And where it gets really cool is that if you're walking at a brisk pace, you'll do about 1,000 steps every 8 minutes. So think about that. That means if you walk for an hour a day, you'll hit 8,000 steps and burn an additional 300 to 400 calories every single day. That might not sound like much, but over the course of a year, that's the equivalent of nearly 60 marathons. And that is going to help you burn a ton of fat without even really trying. And here's the thing, not all of your walking has to be purposeful. You'll do 2,000 steps a day just existing, whether it's commuting to work, walking around the house, grocery shopping, whatever it is. So really, all you need to consciously think about is 6,000 steps a day. That's a 45-minute walk before work to wake yourself up, or at the end of the day to de-stress. So the choice is yours. You can try following another diet plan, run every day and hope for the best. Or you can follow the simple step-by-step advice I've given you today. It's not sexy, there's no fanfare, but not only do I know it works, I know it's sustainable and it's realistic for guys like us. After 3 months, you'll be at least 12 pounds lighter, and after 6, you'll be closing in on 30 pounds. 30 pounds. Just imagine that for a second. You'll be a totally different man. And 6 months is only 0.6% of your life. But the one thing I didn't get a chance to cover in this video is how I would structure your workouts. So go ahead and watch this video next, and I'll condense 19 years of gym advice into 17 minutes for you.